The Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
Intelligent talk indeed. Everyone, welcome to the program. Thanks for being here. And it is, what night is it? It's Wednesday night. And I hope you're all doing well today. Welcome to the program. This is the Intrepid radio program, sans the radio part. We are now a podcast on YouTube, youtube.com/Scotty Roberts. If you're not here, if you're over in the Facebook or the Twitter page, or the Instagram page, or the other pages that are carrying this show, the best place to go for the chat room is the YouTube channel. That's got the best chat room set up so far. So come on over if you want to chat live and join everybody else that's over there now. Welcome to the couple of you that are there. Chuck Thurston, good to see you early in the show. Field Guys, same for you. And I don't know if anybody's actually... There's more people here and more in the chat room than what's showing up. So if you're here and you want to talk, come on in and come on aboard. And so tonight, first, I want to tell you all, it has been, as of today, about an hour and a half ago, it would be exactly 1 year since we lost Uncle Dave. And he, as you all know, passed away a year ago today. There are times I can't believe a year has already gone by. And there's hardly a day, and I will be very honest about this, there's hardly a day that goes by where I don't think about Uncle Dave, where I wish he were there to bounce ideas off of, to do things with, and to get his take on things. So his being gone has left really a gaping hole. And there is a certain amount, those of you who've lost loved ones, you've lost friends that have been close to you, it's not that I haven't faced death before. I have. I've seen lots of death. But this good friend of mine is somebody that, man, I look back on the year and I say that is a year where there's a certain kind of emptiness that's there. It's just, those of you who've experienced it know what I'm talking about. The loss of Dave has left an emptiness that really can't be measured very well. And I'm just going to leave it at that. So, because it's been a while, and that was something about the ancient Egyptians, that the eternal life was in the name, and it was the remembrance of the name. And I've studied that a bit. I've written about that a bit. There was also something that just popped into mind. There was that animated film, Coco, if you've ever seen it. It came out a few years ago. My kids love the movie. It's about the little boy who is seeking, I can't remember if it's his grandfather, and he goes into that world of death, and he has to find out how to keep his ancestors remembered. And there's some good songs in the movie. It's all about family. It's all about strength. It's all about remembering those who have gone on. And so remembering Dave is what I want to do by this tonight. Just a little impromptu presentation to say it's been 1 year ago as of this earlier this evening. It was 1 year since we lost Uncle Dave. And we've, as you know, on this show, we've talked about it. We've had some contacts, what I believe are contacts with Uncle Dave, recordings of what I believe are his voice. You've all heard them. I play it almost every day in between this show and the Captain's Cabin. And so I just want to raise a can to Uncle Dave. And as I said I would do, I picked up a package of these today, just on a whim because I saw them in the grocery store. The Jack Daniel's Number 7 Tennessee whiskey that is blended with Coca-Cola, zero sugar. So Coke Zero. So I'm going to raise a can to Uncle Dave. And I said that I would, for Uncle Dave, it would probably be more appropriate if this was rum. Where's all the rum? And so I didn't see any Captain Morgan and Coke Zero, but isn't that one of the go-to drinks in bars? I'll have a rum and Coke. So maybe they will come out with that one of these days, but I'm going to crack this in Dave's honor because I said I would. And this does have some alcoholic content to it, so hopefully not. Ooh, that's strong. 7.0%. So it's more than your 3.5 beer. 7.0 alcohol by volume. How about that? Well, here we go. Cheers. Here's to you, Dave Potter. I miss you, my brother, my friend. And we're raising a glass to you. We'll do this again in the Captain's Cabin. So here we go. Don't burst my bubble, Jason. Jason says, they don't actually have whiskey in them. Well, what is it? It tastes like whiskey. It tastes like there's a shot of whiskey in there. So, I mean, we could pour our own in and strengthen it up a bit if we wanted to. So, I will be drinking that through the course of the show and maybe even another. So, Sarah Yusuf, you remember that one. Too early to be 3 sheeps to the wind. That's an old story with Dave and I. We were reenacting way back in the middle to late 90s with a group that we were a large group called Clan Tartan, and we did the military reenacting. We were reenacting the Highland Scots who joined up with Gustavus Adolphus in the 20 Years' War. And that was our encampment, and people would come and visit our encampment. And it was done at the rendezvous, even though the time period was a little further back, the 1620s. And we all got we played the inebriate that weekend. And Dave was the provost, and it was all in costume. The whole weekend was in costume. You're living it. And he hauled us up because we were drinking a little too heavily. And sort of the famous line of being 3 sheep to the wind came out. And so there it is. Let's see. I'm seeing things popping up here. Nothing to do with the show. So here, cheers once again. We'll see how that does. It does taste a little whiskey-ish. So if it's not whiskey, I don't know what it is. I'm not a Jack Daniel's drinker. As you know, I'm a single malt Highland Scotch drinker. I say if it starts with a Ben, Glen, Bal, Dal, Mac, or O, I'm on board for it. Single malt Highland Scotch. I'm a purist about it. But this is obviously a blend put in with a blend. So here's to you then. So there's to Uncle Dave. Throw this up one more time. If you remember, my son Sam had a dream the night that Uncle Dave died. I believe it was the night of, or maybe the night after. And in his dream, he saw Uncle Dave standing at the end of a long dock that went out to the open sea, and he could see Dave standing out there, looking towards sea. And in front of Dave in the water was this huge ship, like we see depicted in this picture. Sam's gave me the description, and I put this together for him. That he said it was a gleaming white ship with gold fixtures, and it had silvery white silky sails. And Dave was out there looking up at the ship, and Sam said Dave didn't say anything to him, and he says next thing he was standing next to Dave at the end of the dock, and or the wharf, and he looks over at Dave, and Dave not looking at Sam. Now, all of those of you who knew him on this show knew the kind of face Dave would make when he was telling his little jokes, and he kind of smiled, he said, and looked up and said, "Ah, fair winds have blessed my voyage." And then Sam woke up. And so, yep, and you can hear Uncle Dave, Roger Rabbit. He always said at the end of the show, he said, "Be well, everyone, and remember, do something good for someone." That's what it was. JP, you must have gone and looked it up. I stand corrected. It used to be some sort of malt liquor, but that was years ago. Looks like they reworked the recipe. It does say, it would be false advertising. It does say Jack Daniel's Old Number 7 brand mixed with Coke Zero. That's what we're drinking in Dave's honor. I should have maybe poured a rum and Coke. So in Dave's honor, he was a rum drinker. And I've got one of his Captain Morgan's Special Reserve bottles still over in my liquor cabinet that I procured from his bar. So 11% whiskey. There you go. There it is. Boom. Tastes pretty good. So here's to you, Dave. And let's move on, folks. Just a little remembrance of Dave. And I got to tell you, I sometimes worry about myself that I'm able to talk about Dave and his passing without it just crushing me emotionally. I mean, last night I was thinking about Dave, and I remembered the song that Sam and I sang regarding Dave. I think we sang it on St. Patrick's Day, the Fiddler's Green song. Wrap me up in me oilskins and blanket. No more on the docks I'll be seen. Just tell me, old shipmates, I'm taking a trip, mates. I'll see him someday in Fiddler's Green. And so that I played that yesterday. I just lost it emotionally. So, and it's just under the surface, but I'll always remember Dave. I don't know. I frankly do not know when we say, "I'll see you again." Do we know that that's really going to happen? I don't know for sure. We believe that, but we don't always know if that's what's really going to happen. Will I see Uncle Dave again? Of course, I didn't call him Uncle Dave really all that much until this show. When I saw him, I didn't go, "Hey, Uncle Dave." He was always just Dave. And yes, Sir Yusuf, liberated from his bar. And he had in his RV that he was working on to do some traveling with, he had a bar that he built and put in, and it was made out of an old whiskey barrel. And this bar, he had it, you know how the layout of most RVs, you walk in and the driver's area is there, and you turn this, there's a little kitchenette, and then there's a wall with the door that goes into the little hallway. Well, up against this wall behind the sofas, he had taken a barrel, a whiskey barrel, cut it in half, and put it up against the wall, and had a bar top on top of it, and something that slid out of it, and his bottles were I mean, it was very crafted very nicely. And Sam, when they were prepping the RV to sell it, his family he said, "Just take what you want out of here." And so we Sam said, I want that barrel. And Sam has taken that barrel now, and it's set up in Sam's house. He's set it up against the wall, and he's got all kinds of little things of Dave's on it, and a picture of Dave, a couple of candles. And that's kind of his remembrance of Uncle Dave. Sam was affected very deeply. And that gets me emotionally too, because he was very directly affected by Dave's passing. And so, and Sam has, in turn, he has taken some of Dave's costumes that he got. You see that picture that I'm going to show you something before we move on to our topic of the night. There's some pictures of Sam where he has taken Dave's old costume, his old Captain Morgan costume, which you just saw in that picture, and he has done some nips and tucks, and he has let's see where I've got it in here so I can show you. I didn't prepare to show this picture, but I want you to see it. If you have not seen this, this is what Sam did. He took let's see, Sam. Pardon me as I fumble through this so I can find it and show it to you. Let's see, Sam. Let's see if we can find it here. We got the shirt. We got the. I'm going to find Sam. There it is. This is Sam in Uncle Dave's costume. That he and frankly, remember that when we made costumes for the festival, Dave didn't make costumes. He made clothing. You could call it historical period clothing. And this is what Dave did. He was a tailor. And so when he made a costume, it would have been clothing that could have been worn in the day. Just like my swords back behind me. These are swords that could have been taken into battle. The only difference from a sword from 400 years ago and now is some of the ones I have hanging on my wall are made out of better steel than they made 300-400 years ago. So let me, I'm saving this right now so I can show you what Sam did. If you had not seen this picture in my social media anywhere, because I put it up, I'm just going to load it up right now. I'm presenting, and I know this is not phenomenal radio. So what did he talk about today? Well, he spent 5 minutes talking about loading a picture. Now, we've done it before, so don't let it get to you too much. I try to talk my way through it with panache as we're talking about these things. Here it is. It's loading up. So Sam took this picture. Now, you see what Dave is wearing there. He's got that red vest with the black lapels on it and the black hat that went with it, and a couple of other accoutrements. Well, Sam got that costume. It was all decided by close friends of Dave's. Dana, me, decided that Dave, his costume, some of them should go to Sam. Sam should have pick. Now, here's what Sam did with that. Here is Sam in that same waistcoat and sash and the hat and some of the weapons that he got from Dave's collection. And so there's Sam dressed as Uncle Dave. And I think he did a fantastic job with it. And Sam has actually entered into the crafting of some of these garments and the leather pieces, the belts, the baldricks, the things like that. So there he is. There's my son Sam, dressed in Uncle Dave's old pirate clothing, his Captain Morgan clothing. So, and I got the big black coat with the red facings that goes with this costume. So there you go. All right. So there it is. There's my brief tribute to Uncle Dave. We'll talk about him a little more in the captain's cabin. You can call in and we'll talk a little bit about Uncle Dave. Once again, here's to you, Dave. A little Coke and whiskey. How's that? So let's dig into this. I asked on the graphic. Here's that graphic again. Trust with a question mark. Alien disclosure. Do you trust the government with this topic? And the reason I ask that is because of all the alien disclosure stuff that's going on. Chuck Fishman said, "Way at the thing. What would be the point of telling the public the truth? What would they do about it?" Now there is a question. What would we do with that? I think probably nothing. There's probably nothing we could do about that unless you are of the understanding that you can attract alien life, that you can attract UFOs, UAPs, whatever you want to call them, and that we have the ability with our consciousness to attract them. There are people doing that now already. So what would the government, what would people do with that information? I think it's the idea of, it's like anything. If something's being kept from me, and it's an important thing about life, about the universe, about life around me, what's going on, and I find out somebody's kept that from me, I'm going to be a little pissed off. No, I may not have anything I can do about that, to answer Chuck's question, but it might be just, I want to know. If you know something and you are my government and you're in place because of me, the people, which we all know it doesn't really work that way, does it? But it's supposed to. I want to know. I want to know what's going on. If, let's say, we're going into war with China or Russia or some other country, would you want to know? Or would you want to wait until you hear our troops are bombing the shit out of or being bombed the shit out of? I want to know things. Roger, I'm glad he is too. And my son, just to get back to that topic, Roger Rabbit says, I'm glad Sam is picking up some of Dave's old passions. Remember, those are my passions too. My son grew up going to these rendezvous in costume with me. He would wear his great kilt. He would wear his buckskin or his hunting frock, like we call them, the Daniel Boone frocks. And he'd wear those and go out and hold the musket, fire the musket. So he was pretty well acquainted with this from the time he was very young. There is a story where we were doing the red-coated, our troop, the 42nd Highlanders. Sam was about 4. And this was just before I met Lindsay. Lindsay was who I'd been dating up to that point. Before I met Rainey. And I thought of her because we started dating at this same event that we were at a few years earlier. But we were broken up, and Sam and I were out with the rest of the regiment at this event, and it was before we met Rainey. It'd be just a few months before Rainey and I started. But there's Sam. He's in his kilt and his big poofy sleeved shirt, the sleeves rolled up, and a 4-year-old with his big wooden sword. It's a 2-handed sword, like a William Wallace sword, only it's made out of wood. And he's out there, and he's got all these kids all around him of different ages, mostly grade school kids. And all the boys, and they've all got their wooden swords. And he's about a football field length away from us across the field. And all the guys in our regiment, all our redcoats were all gathered. They go, look at Sam out there. And he's out there in the middle of this circle. And all these boys are like, in the circle with their wooden swords. Sam has got his sword up, and he's going back and forth and crisscrossing the circle, hacking at this guy's sword, hacking at that guy's. And he's yelling, you could hear him. He's going, never again, he yells, which is what Gandalf was yelling. None shall pass. And so it was very funny. So Sam, he's been in this for a long time. And Dave, of course, was a big, if you haven't seen it, I'll show it maybe in the captain's cabin. Some pictures of Sam when he was very young, 6, 7 years old. Sam made, or Dave, Uncle Dave made Sam a brown pirate coat. It was brown and it had gold buttons on it, the big lapels and the long watch coat type of thing. And Sam used to wear it, and then Flynn wore that when he got a little older. So it's been part of the family for a long time. So let's look at this whole thing about disclosure and what does the government really know? Is there something that they do know? I've got several articles up, several bits of information up that I want to share with you. And I want to bring up, let's see if this is what I'm looking for, that the Pentagon UFO finds no empirical evidence for alien technology in a new report. And this was as of March of this year. And so all investigative efforts at all levels of classification concluded that most sightings were ordinary objects and phenomena and the result of misidentification. This is what the government is saying with their study. The Pentagon's UFO office, yes, there is a UFO office, has once again stressed that it has found no evidence of alien technology in the skies, in space, or crashed in the American desert. Now, it's interesting. You had Obama come out a few years ago and state there is no evidence that UFOs exist. He says there are no aliens. We are not doing anything with that. That was his statement. And we've seen other things along the way. But then we've seen the opposite. You had Trump early on saying, no, if there was anything to it, he says, I would be concerned about it. He says, but I'm not. He says, Trump was a very practical, down-to-earth, dollars, let's get the economy working type of president. And now, however, in between presidencies, he said something was a little less rigid about there not being any aliens or any UFOs, and that he was exposed to that information. So it wasn't quite a committal, but it wasn't as harsh a denial as it had been earlier. Same with Bill Clinton. I've talked about the interview he did with, I believe it was not Jimmy Kimmel, the other Jimmy, Jimmy Fallon, and who asked him, what did you know as president? And the body language specialist, Ben Henson, who is into UFOs and cryptids and ghost hunting and all of that. I know Ben, and he watched the interview and he pointed out all the things about Bill Clinton's body language until the topic of aliens came up and disclosure and things, and all of his body language changed. And it was one of not lying, but it was almost like a nervous, not revealing what he really knew. And there were lots of signs and ticks that showed that up. Got to go look that up on YouTube, and you can watch that. But the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, the AARO for short, was created to help the U.S. government study and resolve all these reports of unidentified anomalous phenomena, UAP. That's the new term that includes UFOs, not only in the sky, but also in space, as well as underwater, or even those that appear to travel between those domains. On Friday, March 8th of this year, the office released its long-awaited report. It's entitled, The Report on the Historical Record of U.S. Government Involvement with Unidentified Anomalous Phenomenon, UAP, Volume 1. And the report is sure to have caused a lot of controversy among the UAP disclosure movement that argues the US government does, in fact, know a lot more about alleged alien presence here on our planet than it publicly admits. And Arrow found no evidence that any US government investigation, academic sponsored research, or official review analysts confirmed that any sighting of a UAP represented extraterrestrial technology. That was, quote unquote, the report's effective executive summary notes. And while the report notes, importantly, that many UAP reports remain unsolved or unidentified, it adds that Arrow believes this is mainly due to a lack of data. If more and or better quality information were available, many of these sightings could be identified as ordinary objects or phenomena, Arrow's report states. And the vast majority of reports almost certainly are the result of misidentification and a direct consequence of the lack of domain awareness. And there's a direct correlation between the amount and quality of available information on a case with the ability to conclusively resolve it. So says Arrow. Now, you know what this reminds me of? On the 50th anniversary of the so-called UFO crash in Roswell, New Mexico, which took place in 1947. So it doesn't seem this long ago, but in 1997, the 50 year, I remember watching on TV a report, and it showed, and they were doing all these big doings with audiences and military officials and so on. There was somebody from, I don't know if he was a lieutenant colonel or a general or what he was in the Air Force, came and talked about that and addressed the issue of UFOs, of the crash, that it was a weather balloon and blah, 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 the things we've heard for, now close to 80 years. And so he made a statement. Somebody asked him, well, what about the bodies that were found? And he said, well, those bodies that were found, we discovered that was really crash test dummies that they shoved out of planes with parachutes to test parachutes, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that this is what they found. These were the alien bodies they found. Yet what they found out later was, while he's saying this in a public press conference, there were, well, at least 8 to 10 years before they started using these dummies for the parachuting at the time of the 1947 crash in Roswell. So he was disseminating misinformation or disinformation. Chuck Thurston is saying that the government routinely never tells the public about a lot of things, troop movements, classified information, and the like. The public is either better off not knowing or they would interfere. And there's some truth to that. John Ward and I used to talk on this very show a few years ago. We used to talk about sometimes governmental secrets need to remain governmental secrets. We don't need to know everything. And most times that is for the security of the nation. We don't need to know every secret that's going on militarily in the US government. I think it's a very poor display, or it is an excellent stage show, dog and pony show, when they start talking about troop movements and what they're going to be doing with certain attacks or things like that over the years. It could be misinformation or disinformation. Why would you release that information when the enemy can see that information just as well as the American public? So, however, with the alien craft thing, the alien existence of aliens on the planet, isn't that something that's been a question that's been going on for so many decades that I think that would fall outside the norm of just national security, unless the government knows something about these aliens. They are in contact with them. Many say they are. Many have said that they've come out, and there wasn't anybody really officially until David Grouch last year came out and said he had some information that the government was back engineering alien craft that had crashed, and that we were in possession of 11 of them. Now, of course, right away, the government starts discrediting him, even though he had a sterling reputation. And why was he being discredited? Was it because it wasn't true, or was it because the government wants it to remain covered up and he's whistleblowing somewhere where he ought not be whistleblowing? Now, reverse engineering, Sarah, that's we also learned about that. People go, what is that? A good fictional example of that, if you watch the movie Independence Day with Will Smith and Jeff Goldblum, how they were back engineering alien craft. And so we used to think when movies like that would come out, that the government and all kinds of movies like that, is that in Hollywood, or is that something where the government is saying, okay, we need this to happen in entertainment and this to slowly what's the word I'm looking for? Not pattern, to slowly get the public mind in an acceptable position of this thing, that these things exist. Yeah, taking it apart and trying to figure out how it works. Exactly. And as I've done with some things here, like, okay, how does that little projector work? I'm going to take it apart and find out. I used to do that stuff when I was a kid, but I was never an engineer. Chuck Thurston said they also published a photo in the newspaper of two soldiers standing over a ripped up weather balloon. However, the original reports talked about rigid, super light white metal parts. Well, that's it exactly. And there was something, I know there was a time where they were trying to bring up the resolution of a memo that was sitting on the desk behind the military commander, and was kneeling on the floor and holding up the weather balloon parts. And there was something, they thought maybe there was something on that memo that's picked up in the photo, but it was in the background. It was blurry. They were trying to work on resolution. I haven't heard anything from that. I don't know if they ever found out exactly what that said or not. But yes, here's the big question. When the government denies that it exists, can we believe them? Do they want us not to know? Do they put out deliberate misinformation in order to send people looking in that direction instead of the direction where they ought to be looking? That's a big question. And so the question comes up, can we trust our government when it comes to these things? That's a huge question. So NASA's UAP study team reached similar conclusions as AARO in its first public report, which was published in September of 2023. The NASA independent study team did not find any evidence that UAP have an extraterrestrial origin, but we don't know what these UAP are. That was the NASA administrator, Bill Nelson. He said that at the time. AARO's report goes on to state that despite widely publicized claims made in a July 2023 congressional hearing that included the testimony from former U.S. military and intelligence community personnel, this would be the David Grouch issue. We talked about that last year when this came out. The office found no evidence, it says, AARO says, suggesting the U.S. government is in possession of crashed or reverse engineered alien technology, nor that any hidden UAP reverse engineering programs actually exist at all, either in the US government or in private industry. So AARO determined, based on all the information provided to date, that claims involving specific people, known locations, technological tests, documents, allegedly involved in or related to the reverse engineering of extraterrestrial technology are inaccurate. And that's what the report states. And these claims are mostly the result of circular reporting from a group of individuals who believe this to be the case, despite the lack of any evidence, it adds. Now, Sean Kirkpatrick, he's the former head of AARO, published an op-ed in Scientific American on Thursday, March 7th, arguing that while it's important for the U.S. to study UFOs, it needs to do so from a scientific perspective and without resorting to conspiracy theories. Now, put the brakes, hold the phone. What have we learned about conspiracy theories? Today's conspiracy theories are tomorrow's facts. We've been finding that out more and more and more, especially in relation to certain political involvements that the country is in. That most of what looked like conspiracy theory just looked to the whole pandemic issue. How much of that have we learned what was being labeled as false information and banned and censored on social media sites? It's actually true. Some of the negatives. So, and by the way, let me make mention of this. There was a Supreme Court ruling that came out today, if you haven't heard this. 6-3, the Supreme Court did against the legislation that would say the social media companies and the US government cannot be in cahoots with each other. It was basically saying the government is suppressing the First Amendment if it uses an outside agency such as Facebook or Twitter or YouTube and orders them to cover things up or to suppress any kind of information that might state the opposite. Now, it was surprising to a lot of people that, and I will say this, by the way, those of you that are worried that the Supreme Court is too conservative, it goes either way. Sometimes it's conservative, sometimes it's liberal. It all depends on who's there, who's placed people in place. But the holdouts were, of course, Alito and Thomas, and who was the third holdout on that? But you had the supposedly conservative justices, John Roberts, and the woman with three names. I said it to Rainey this afternoon, and now I haven't looked at it again. So now I'm thinking, Comey. No, you know who she is. By Trump. She's a conservative, and they were against it, along with the 4 other liberals that were on the Supreme Court. And a lot of conservatives are saying this is really bad. This is a really bad ruling because there is already precedence that was established that the government cannot use other agencies to try to suppress constitutional rights when they can't do it themselves. So that came down today. So by the way, when I'm talking, and the reason I bring that up, because I'm thinking in the back of my head, is I'm talking about the pandemic and things that were negative and so on. Well, now are the stops going to be taken out? Now that the Supreme Court said, yeah, the government can do that. Or they didn't say they could do it, they just didn't rule against it. It was kind of a weak-kneed ruling. Because they didn't come out and say, yeah, this is good. They didn't come out and say, yeah, this is bad. So I'd have to look at the ruling in a little more detail to understand it better. But so we all know that there are things that happen. There are conspiracy theories, and there are things suppressed. And was the decision made because the government should have the right to do that, to suppress free speech in public forums that are not governmentally owned? Ask yourself that question, especially when it comes to UFOs and alien life and back engineering, reverse engineering, and stuff like that. So this is where I ask, do you trust the government to be giving us the accurate, right information? Many outside observers have criticized AARO as supposedly part of a continuing government cover-up of the existence of aliens. Interestingly, they've not provided any verifiable evidence of this, nor are some of the more outspoken willing to engage with the office to discuss their positions or offer up the data and evidence that they claim to possess. And many times I think those that are really pushing for disclosure, and there's a lot of information, I got to get somebody on this show that can speak to me cogently about disclosure and the whole thing about alien disclosure. Maybe they have more than we know they have, but sometimes to me they come across as, well, I had an experience. I'm an abductee. I'm a survivor of abduction. And but there's no way to prove that. So there's no evidence. Or sometimes I think it's highly subjective evidence. We just feel that the government is covering this up. Because of all this, they call it evidence. It's not really evidence. It's hearsay, it's talk, it's stuff talking about these things. I would like to see the hard evidence myself, because frankly, I believe the government's covering things up. But I can't prove that to you. No proof. How many things do we encounter where we know that something is so, but we couldn't prove it if our life depended on it? We have no proof, but we just know. But that's not going to change things, that kind of knowledge. You need to have proof. It's like being in a court of law. Kirkpatrick, who we mentioned earlier, wrote that these critics have relied on secondhand reporting without the rigor in their critical thinking. The former AARO chief conceded that the report's conclusions are sure to be criticized by those who believe the Pentagon and private aerospace companies possess crashed alien technology. I know they possess crashed alien technology. I don't care what AARO says. I don't care that there's no evidence. We know it, right? Right? We know what that thinking is like, not just in regard to aliens. All across the board. They're hiding things from the public. But he does note that his former office has given away every opportunity for witnesses and whistleblowers to come forward with any evidence they might have. Now look at a guy like Bob Lazar, who made claims back in the 80s and then he went quiet for like 30 years. And then he finally came out and he said, I found my best safety was to go public and talk about it. I know of people in this work. I think of Anthony F. Sanchez, who's a good old friend of mine. We don't talk nearly as much as we should. I'd like to get him on the show. He wrote his book, The UFO Highway, about 10, 12 years ago. And he's written other things since. And he's really into the big Mesa Verde subterranean facilities and things like that in New Mexico. And he would say to you that he knows of some of these things. He believes he was targeted and poisoned by somebody once. And he's a down-to-earth guy. But he's a researcher. That's his belief. I want him to come on and talk about that. Anthony, if you're listening, get a hold of me. I'll get a hold of you if you don't. And so while those who came forward and provided this valuable information, albeit not of extraterrestrials or cover-ups, those who chose instead titillate the national interest only stirred division and hatred against the credible men and women of AARO who are working faithfully to address this mission. That's what Kirkpatrick said. Now, of course, then the big question is, we're looking at the credible men and women of AARO. What if they aren't? What if they are charged with? What if there's only a select few that know? This is the conspiracy theory that's out there. So it has yet to be seen if that's going to be proven. However, according to some accounts, many U.S. government or military personnel who refuse to share any kind of their eyewitness testimony with Arrow. And this report is not going to satisfy critics, in part because there are many witnesses who did not trust Arrow and would not speak with him. Some of them are like, I don't want to end up dead. I don't want to end up suicided with 2 holes in the back of my head. This is the kind of thinking that's out there. Are they accurate? Do you trust your government? Arrow, they wouldn't speak with them. And it's most concerning, what is most concerning, false conflation in some news coverage of the assertion. There is no recovered alien technology, with the notion that we don't have evidence of craft doing things beyond our present understanding of science and technology. So said Mellon, Mellon, of space.com. And he said, in fact, hundreds of credible military reports remain unexplained and are continuing to pour in. And he added that the public needs to understand why it's imperative to continue to aggressively investigate UAP for both national security and science regarding the accuracy of the Arrow report. Now, Arrow's new report goes on to list U.S. military and space programs that could have accounted for some UAP sightings. At least some of the portion of these misidentifications almost certainly were the result of a surge in new technologies that observers would have understandably reported as UFOs. This is what the report states. He took a drink on that one. So some of the examples include Project Mogul. Have you heard of that one? It's a high-altitude balloon program designed to spy on Soviet nuclear tests that reportedly was responsible for a balloon crash outside Roswell, New Mexico in 1947. That incident led to the widely known story of a crashed flying saucer that persists to this day. Project Mogul. Was that because if anything else I could cover that up with? What about the reports from the day of the crash, where you have military there saying they recovered bodies? You have the commander saying we recovered these, as Chuck stated earlier, recovered parts of hard parts of a structure of something that crashed into the desert floor. But then the story changed within a day, and the military was giving out different, and the other guys that said the other stuff, they were no longer available for comment. Another example is the Gambit project, which launched photographic spy satellites into orbit that jettisoned film canisters in re-entry vehicles that were then recovered by U.S. Air Force aircraft as they descended by parachute. Many of the USAF's formerly classified aircraft are also cited, including the U-2 spy plane, the B-2 Spirit stealth bomber, and the SR-71 Blackbird. So the Arrow report points out that UAP sightings and beliefs that UFOs represent alien technology have tended to spike at times of growing concern about national security and technological surprise, such as during the Cold War. And so the report found that at least some of the UFO sightings since the 1940s were, hold on, it's my daughter Rowan. I am on radio. What can I do for you, Rowan?
Hey, Dad.
Yeah.
Hey, Dad. I just need to tell you right now because I think Mom's sleeping.
No, Mom's at work still.
Oh, okay. But anyways, I'm getting tired of basketball, so I'm quitting basketball and I'm playing softball this year.
All right, fantastic. How about you and I talk about that a little later? I'm on radio right now.
Shut up, Matt. There's nothing to talk about. It's done and over. I'm tired of basketball.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right, we'll talk. We'll talk more, so you know. See ya. Bye. I love you. Have a fun time tonight. Is that an overnight? So there you go. I just thought I'd bring you in. Since they aren't here to interrupt me, she calls during my radio show. So there you are. All right. So it could be that such phenomenon is also occurring today as revolutionary new spacecraft, aerospace technologies are being developed and tested at a rapid pace. And it's understandable how observers unfamiliar with these programs, says the report, could mistake sightings of these new technologies as something extraordinary, even otherworldly. How about that? What do you think of that report? That whole thing. And I got so much more information here. I want to hit a little bit more before we get out of this. But there's, it only takes one to be real, and it changes humanity forever. What if we've been lied to about UFOs? What if our government is not telling the truth? What if our government is concocting a great tale to cover their tale? And we would have to ask, well, why is my government doing that? Don't I have a right to know if it's real? The government's insisting that it isn't real. Well, who's insisting that? Is it people who are not in the know and are led down this trail, that there's nothing to see here, by the higher ups? Does somebody know? And that's just conspiracy theory is the problem. So this is why I've got to know why the alien disclosure people think that there is so much here to uncover and reveal. I tend to believe that there is. Don't get me wrong. I think that it does exist. So, yeah, Barbie D, family break. Yeah, we were missing it live, so she had to call it in. So, the continuing lack of transparency about UFOs in the US is causing concern, not only about the existence of aliens, but about the psychological fallout of uncovering a conspiracy. Let me ask you, do you believe that there is a conspiracy at play here? If you thought that we were about to finally get the truth about UFOs, think again. At the end of last year, a US government bill that would have mandated the controlled release of all classified documents and artifacts relating to UFOs was significantly watered down at the last minute so that it would go through Congress. A bill watered down. People saying you can't say that. You got to water that down. So interest in unidentified aerial phenomena, UAPs, and that's the new term for UFOs, reignited in June a year ago when the U.S. intelligence agency whistleblower David Grush told the Debrief website that during his official duties, he had discovered the U.S. had indeed been retrieving spacecraft of non-human origin for decades. Those were his words last year. Now, the claims led to a congressional hearing, and I watched some of that hearing, in which Grush and others described what they had gleaned of this super secret project, or seen with their own eyes during military service. Their testimonies resulted in this new Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon Disclosure Act, authored by a bipartisan group of 5 elected representatives. You know what you want to do? If you want to see a unity in Congress, get off of politics and get on something like UAPs, aliens. And you'll find that there's some bipartisan agreement. And it was led by Democrat Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, who I dislike greatly and think he needs to be gone from government. I think he's a liar for many reasons. But Schumer and the Republican Senator Mike Rounds. I don't know much about Rounds. But while it's easy to focus on the extraordinary nature of the subject, on the credibility of those witnessing UAPs, the prospect of alien spacecraft raises serious issues that go beyond whether we're alone in the universe. There's lots of scientific work that's underway, not only to look for signs of extraterrestrial life, but more recently to ask what it would mean psychologically for us if aliens really do exist. And we talked about that a little bit last night, or on Monday. Potentially worse if the authorities have been lying to us about what they know about this. So when it comes to governments, the primary issue is trust. As Republican Congressman Glenn Grothman of Wisconsin, my guys here in Wisconsin, explained in his opening remarks on July 26th of last year, the lack of government transparency regarding UAPs has fueled wide speculation and debate for decades, eroding public trust in the very institutions that are meant to serve and protect them. So, is this a self-fulfilling prophecy? Is government not to be trusted because we don't trust them about the information they're not dealing with? There's a question. Okay, Barbie D, it's another interesting show. Take care. Are you on a clock? You got to get out of here. This is just the time your body says time to go to bed, because that always happens right around 10 o'clock, Barbie D. Not criticizing, just wondering, curious if you got something going on at 10 o'clock. You got parties that go on at 10 o'clock, or it's just bedtime. I get it. I do get it, by the way. Just glad to have you here when you can make it. You'll have to listen to the rest of this one tomorrow. So the Disclosure Act was meant to restore public trust and assure Congress that secret projects were not taking place beyond its oversight. The legislation was modeled on President John F. Kennedy's assassination records, the Collection Act of 1992. And frustrated with the growing public perception that agents of the US government had conspired with the military to assassinate the president, a belief that found its way into the mainstream through Oliver Stone's 1991 movie JFK, the act established a national archive of all records relating to the assassination and declassified the vast majority of them. And the process was overseen by an independent body. So the original text of the UAP Disclosure Act was similar in that it proposed the creation of a national archive by an independent panel of 9 US citizens. And their job was to decide, free of military, political, or corporate influence, when and how to disclose information from the archive. And the act would have empowered the panel to hold more hearings, and the witnesses afforded immunity from prosecution. And so it also proposed that the federal government shall exercise eminent domain over any and all recovered technologies of unknown origin and biological evidence of non-human intelligence that may be controlled by private persons or entities in the interest of the public good. How many times have we learned, hey there, how you doing?
You were being boring.
Is Mom home yet?
No.
Yeah, I was being blind because I was in the middle of
No,
something.
you were being boring because.
Oh, boring. I'm boring.
Because you were just talking.
I must be boring. We only have 7 people in the chat room. So people either have other than on, or I'm boring as shit. I hope it's not the latter. So don't push my chair. You have to adapt to me, not me to you, when I'm doing the show. So,
You're boring.
okay, see ya. I'm boring. So, in other words, the US government could commandeer any supposed artifacts held by private citizens or companies, and was then under a duty to disclose them to the public. And in parallel, the act also called for the Secretary of State to contact any foreign government that may hold material relevant to unidentified anomalous phenomena and technologies of unknown origin or non-human intelligence, and seek disclosure of such material. So in short, it would finally have revealed the facts about UAPs, but most of these stipulations have now been struck out of that legislation. All that remains is the archive, but it will not be administered by an independent body. Following the vote, Schumer described the archive as, quote, a major win for the government transparency. But then he went on to say that it was an outrage that proposed review board was not adopted. Now it means that declassification of UAP records will be left to the same entities that have blocked and obfuscated their disclosure for decades. So, speaking to News Nation on the 12th of December, Grush, the whistleblower, was unequivocal, calling the charges or the changes the greatest legislation failure in American history. Not only has the act done little to improve transparency, it's already driving the suspicion that the US government really does have something to hide. If you're going to work everything you can do to not reveal information, people are going to start asking, what do you got to hide? Even something as innocuous as Trump's personal income tax, which is not a law to reveal. Remember how many years through his presidency they pushed and pushed and pushed? And they were saying, well, what has he got to hide? He's obviously hiding something. This is the same thing. And remember the way, when his taxes were revealed, they found it was nothing. Nothing there. He's a man who paid his taxes. Boom. That was it. And all he was playing was the game of saying, make me. I don't need to tell you what my taxes are. Now, is this what the government's doing on UFOs and aliens? So if this is the case, there's no substance to the UFO UAP issue beyond misperceptions, paranoia, delusions, hallucinations, gullibility, disinformation. Then the government, the military, and the academic organizations need to openly and transparently look under every alleged rock in this topic. So, and this is something that was attested to by clinical psychologist David Stubbings of Cardiff Metropolitan University. He said, but they have chosen to do the exact opposite, which increases the suspicion that there's something to hide. So people have been seeing unexplainable things in the sky for thousands of years. We see paintings with them in the sky. We see biblical things. We see all kinds of things down through the ages. So while it's easy to dismiss them as hallucinations, flights of fancy, it's much harder to ignore photographs and videos from reputable sources. And this is exactly what the Office of the Director of National Intelligence in the U.S. realized in 2021. His report, Preliminary Assessment, Unidentified Aerial Phenomena, detailed that the U.S. Department of Defense, their Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force, was investigating 144 UAP reports made between 2004 and 2021, mostly by military personnel. And it also released 3 declassified videos of some of these UAPs in action. And we remember the famous one with the pilots talking to each other. They got the, you see the video, and they're trying to follow this thing through the sky. What they call it, like the breath mint, not Pez. What was the word they used for it? What's the breath mint? A little Tic Tac. And so it was material that helped persuade Stubbings to take the subject seriously. And he interviewed people who believed that they'd seen something they couldn't explain, interested in identifying any underlying mental health needs or common personality types among them. He found that all kinds of personality profiles see UAPs, and many are left with unmet psychological needs. He said, initially, I felt that the UAP issue could be explained by prosaic, psychological, and/or situational factors. The more I looked into real cases, the less sure I became. That's what Stubbings said. He said, I started realizing this is a very credible topic. If true, it's a game changer. If not true, it's deeply concerning. How did we get to this point in society where we're thinking all this stuff is true and we're spending all this money looking into it? So traditionally, it's astronomers who look for evidence, like SETI, we talked about last night. They are the ones that look for evidence of other life in the universe. The search for extraterrestrial intelligence, SETI, uses telescopes to look for signals that could be coming from alien civilizations. But while SETI was once on the fringes of astronomical science, it's now increasingly seen as very mainstream. So Breakthrough Listen is the largest ever scientific research program searching for evidence of civilizations beyond Earth. It aims to survey the 1 million closest stars to Earth and the 100 closest galaxies to our own, running since January of 2016 at the University of California, Berkeley. The project announced a new headquarters in Oxford, England, last October. So for the project, it's a big vote of confidence from one of the premier universities, astrophysics groups, physics departments in the world. And this is what Stephen Croft, an astronomer at UC Berkeley and the SETI Institute, and also a senior researcher at the new HQ, says. And in early December, Croft and colleagues published results from the project from more than 140 terabytes of data, the equivalent of watching more than 5 years of continuous high-definition video from 97 nearby galaxies, although they found nothing that looked artificial in this particular run. But Croft says, hey, it's a start. Hey, we got it rolling. Other astronomers using different techniques have seen things that warrant further investigation. Beatrice can never say her name, Villarroel, it's Villarroel, Villarroel, assistant professor of physics at Stockholm University, is leading a team of astronomers looking at photographic plates of the night sky that date from before the first artificial satellite was launched in 1957. How interesting would that be? Looking back at historical pictures of the night sky. And as satellites orbit the Earth, they can reflect sunlight, causing bright glints to appear in the night sky. You know what? I can usually tell when I'm watching a satellite. Gotta tell you, we see them all the time. Every time we go outside, Randy will say, hey, there's another satellite. So these leave streaks in astronomical images or spots of light that appear and disappear seemingly at random. And mysteriously on one plate from April of 1950, we're talking 74 years ago, Villarroel found 9 sources of light that appeared within a half-hour period and then vanished. Conducting observations using the Grand Telescope Canarias on the La Palma in the Canary Islands revealed nothing at the locations of the light sources that might have flared up. There is no astronomical explanation for this type of event, says Villarroel. Now, more recently, her team found 3 bright stars on a plate dated the 19th of July, 1952, that have since vanished. Provocatively, this is a date burned into the diaries of UFO enthusiasts around the world because it coincides with a famous incident in which pilots and radar operators saw lights that they could not explain in the skies above Washington, D.C. I think it's very important to do this kind of nearby searching for extraterrestrial objects because the astronomical community mostly looks for things very, very far away. I think it's time to do something new. This Villarroel, who is now working to establish the ExoProbe project that to look for anomalous objects among the vast number of human satellites currently in orbit. Let me ask you, do you think that that's a waste of money and a waste of time for scientists to be spending their whole careers looking for the possibility of alien life out there? But what happens if she, Villarroel, or anyone else uncovers irrefutable proof that non-human intelligences have visited and are visiting Earth? A few years ago, a physicist named John Priestland, who runs an engineering consultancy, he found himself wondering what this would mean to us as individuals if there's something here to be disclosed. What about that? He said, if there's something to be disclosed, and I'm very conscious that there might be a lot of people who will be affected, and there isn't an entity out there, as far as I can see, that this is putting people first, he says. So he set up Unhidden, an organization, you can look that up, Unhidden, an organization dedicated to decreasing the stigma associated with discussing UAPs, non-human intelligences, the possibility that evidence is being covered up by governments. It's a mission that Stubbings agrees with. He says there's still a stigma around this whole topic. People are so frightened about discussing it, he says. But it only takes one account to be real, and it changes the narrative of humanity forever. So this is why the Disclosure Act was seen as important. And its altered version is such a disappointment, even potentially dangerous. These days, it's all about my truth. Oh, God, I'm so sick of that phrase. Well, if that's truth for you, then that's your truth. Or this is my truth. I don't think truth doesn't have personal attachments. Truth is truth, whether we choose to believe it or not, or accept it, or make it my truth. Except for people who happen to see strange things in the sky. Your truth is your truth, and it's truth. It's truth to you, unless you see strange junk. And we don't legitimize their truth. And so Priestland said that they need to help and support. They need help and support. And we need to do that in the context of possible disclosure, because there might suddenly be 8 billion people who have to get used to the fact that they're being told that there's a very different worldview by exactly the same organizations that they now realize have lied to them for the past 80 years. What do you think of that? What do you think of all of this? Our government is supposed to be an extension of who we are. We grant them power to do what they do. And I'm talking more about the federal government. And we talked about who gives the federal government power, who gave it its power, who made them the boss? The states' governments. The states ratified the power that's given to the federal government. Therefore, the states really have the right to pull the plug on the federal government. The federal government, did they create the federal government? The states? And now it's a monster all on its own, uncontrollable? It's the way it seems some days. But it's still us, the people who control the states' governments, who also control the federal government. So we have the right to ask. But many of us are dangling in the breeze with our, our genitals dangling in the breeze like piñatas. That's just for the guys, ladies. We have things that dangle like piñatas. Women don't. So, but dangling in the breeze because the government has control over us. And we don't think we have any right to demand something from them. We do. There's certainly channels we have to go through, but wow. So don't shoot Jar Jar Binks. Yes, says Elderberry. There you go. So there's so much more on this that we want to talk about, and we'll get to it. We'll take your calls, and you guys can call, and we'll talk about this stuff after this little break. Let's have this break, give you a time to take care of business, and we'll be back. So all of you, sit tight, live long and prosper. We'll be right back to the Captain's Cabin.
Join us every weeknight at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern. The Intrepid radio program, a Scotty Roberts Productions broadcast.
Hey folks, this is Scotty Roberts, and this is the Intrepid radio broadcast. I've been broadcasting for about 20 years now, covering such topics as science, politics, the paranormal, weird science, weird world history, archaeology, and the paranormal. Everything from ghosts to cryptids to creepy things that go bump in the night. So every week I bring you 3 new episodes. Come and join my channel and also be a patron to this site. So see the details below, and we'll see you here.
Dave, I love you, brother.
I miss you too.
I miss you too, I heard.
Yep,
Did you guys hear that?
I heard that.
I miss you, Dave.
All right, folks, welcome to the Captain's Cabin. Welcome back. Glad to have you back. Once again, for those of you maybe joining us late, coming in for the Captain's Cabin, you got other things you're doing, or it's too late and you got to get the kids to bed or get everything settled, and then you can come in. Scott Allen says, I came into this stream hearing genitals hanging in the breeze, dangling in the breeze. I'm in. Yes, it's comfortable that way, isn't it? Sometimes we pack those boys up in a tight pair of jeans. Tight, not like skin tight. I'm not talking about, anything stupid. I'm just talking about put on a pair of pants and a pair of jeans and you got testicles. Sometimes you want them to hang free. So what did Roger say? Well, I mean, it's 2024. So women kind of sort of might have things that dangle. Yeah, not real women, though. Manufactured women. might have those. So Sarah Yusuf, of course, says, TMI, Scotty. Why? We all know these things exist. Yeah, but we don't need to talk about them. Sure we do. Sometimes. Yeah, we need a banjo, says Chuck. So once again, I'm going to throw this up there. I just want to say to Uncle Dave, I'm not going to say rest in peace. I don't want him to rest in peace. I want him to have adventure and excitement out there. There's got to be cool junk going on in the afterlife. I don't know. What is it? Is it resting? We sit back and we strum our harp. Is that what we do in the afterlife? No. I'll bet that there's a whole hell of a lot of stuff to do. We can speculate. We have no real idea what goes on. He probably has a buxom redhead on each arm, says Sarah Yusuf. Maybe so. Maybe so. No, I don't know. I don't know how that stuff works. The Baptists will tell you it's this. The Catholics will tell you it's that. The Buddhists will tell you, oh, it's this again. Same with the Hindus and the Taoists. The pagans might tell you something different. The Muslims will tell you something different. So I have no idea. And we have no idea who's telling us the truth on that. It's like government disclosure, isn't it? How do you know who's actually telling you the truth when there's no real way to prove it other than firsthand information? The Apostle Paul, I was taken up into the seventh strata of heaven and revealed things that I cannot tell. And God gave me an infirmity to prevent me and to remind me that I'm not to say anything about this. Yeah, you won't know until you investigate it yourself. Isn't that the truth? And look at it this way. I kind of look at what makes life an adventure. Is it because we know there's risk involved? If you're climbing a mountain, don't you know there's risk involved when you set out? If you're seeking the unknown in archaeology or history, don't we know that there's the possibility we may never learn something? And we have a finite time to make our discoveries. Well, what happens when you're in the afterlife? And supposedly, there's no end to that. It's eternal life. Well, I'm going to go on this adventure. Oops, I slipped on the mountain while I was climbing. That's not going to kill me, though. I have eternal life. What is it comprised of? What makes it an adventure? What is the unknown that we want to seek? Is it just a totally different awareness that we had know nothing about? So, yeah, that's it, Chuck. Exactly. Chuck says, I've done a few hundred paranormal investigations. Got lots of evidence, but no proof. Boom. That's about it. Have they ever taken someone beyond death, asks Roger Rabbit, and back in a scientific setting? We hear about it happening to random people, but has it ever truly been studied? I think there's been a lot of studies going on. There's been a lot of past life studies where kids, we talked about it on this show, kids come up with stories and accounts of having been somebody else. And they're very accurate. Sometimes family members go, it's accurate. Nobody would have known that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's another phrase I start to take a little bit, not dubious, but a little bit with a grain of salt. And nobody knew this about me, but they revealed it. That kind of statement, I hear that a lot. Nobody knew. How do we know that? That's like saying, do you know how many haunted shows I see? Where every place they are, and this is the most haunted hotel in America. And this is the most haunted restaurant in America. And this is the most haunted outhouse in America. And this is the most haunted location in North America. We hear that stuff all the time. There's so many most haunted places out there that everything's most haunted. I think it's all depends on what kind of evidence you find, like Chuck said. Rainey and I picked up tons and tons of evidence in our paranormal investigations. Do we have proof? Nope. Nope. And Field Guy said anything can be found out nowadays. Almost. Prove that there's a God. We can't find that out. Prove that there is life after death. We can't prove that. We have evidence of it, but we can't prove it. So you would think that would prove it. So Chuck Thurston said, well, there's a weird story. I was born dead. I remember you saying that. He says, and in an OBE, saw myself being born. I described what was going on years later to my mother, and I was right on in every detail. Interesting. Sarah Youssef says, trust and faith or proof? I think those are different things. You can have faith in something without having any proof. You can put your trust in something without having any proof that it's real. It's the way we're wired. It's the way we're put together. Do I have proof that it was Dave talking to me on that recording? No. I have the evidence, and I believe that it was him, and I believe it sounds like him. Even Travis Thorpe, good friend of mine, very close to this, being a high priest in the pagan world and knowing his shit. He said, even hearing this thing with Dave, and he was there, by the way, with me when I went and saw Dave in the hospital the day before he died. It was Travis that drove down there with Sam and me. And even he listened to that recording of Dave, and he said, well, there's no way to know for sure. He says, do we think it's Dave's voice because we want it to be? Basically. That's how he said that. So as a matter of fact, I don't think Travis will mind if I call this up because he saw this and we were talking about it and he was commenting on it. And he says, it's one of those, he watched that little 17-second video we play. He says, it's one of those yes, but no's. And where like there was a lot going on with what it's picking up on in the scanner, but all the more reason because it almost sounded like it was talking at the same time. And as far as it sounded like him, yes. He says, but I was conditioned to hear his voice. Shrug. It's because I told him it's Dave's voice. So are we conditioned for that? I wasn't conditioned to hear his voice when I first heard it. Or I was looking for his voice. Maybe my mind played a trick on me. How many times on a regular hunt do you catch, I miss you? Not often. And when it's not even a message for us, but was almost on cue, then almost there's this just the factor of, this is Travis still talking, if it's what you know in your heart to be, accept it as it is and smile about it. That's kind of his take on that. And I agree with him to a certain extent. Having nothing but proof leaves no wiggle room for the unknown. Very true, Chuck. Yeah, you need both. You can have evidence, but you got to have proof that the evidence is real in order to prove it. So there's that. So anyway, to Uncle Dave, miss you, brother. I'm going to do something that Rainey doesn't like. So don't tell her. I'm going to turn on a little device here. This is a one-time test for a few seconds. And Dave, if this is you, if you're out there, I want you to talk to us. You got a minute here. to say something if you hear anything, or if you're here. I've got this little device going. I'm going to hold it up toward the mic, and this is a spirit box of sorts. So, Dave, if you're out there, talk to us. Talk to me. Just an experiment. You might be way off doing other things. Do I have sound? Let's see. See, I'm hearing nothing. Here we go. All right. Sorry if you were talking. Uncle Dave, if you're out there, say something to us. I'm just going to do this for a few seconds. If you're out there, can you say something very clear to us? If you're here and hear my voice. Anything? Dave, I miss you. See, there's lots of noise, but Dave, speak in your voice if you are there. I'm not going to keep this on long. Rainey doesn't like me doing this in the house, so. Dave, Sam misses you. I miss you. Rainey misses you. Abby and Bryn miss you. The kids. A lot of your friends miss you. I don't mind spirit boxes, Chuck. You've got to get something really distinct out of them for it to be workable. Dave, are you out there? I'm going to cut this short if I don't hear from you. We'll do this. Can you say something loud and clear and very cogent? That's it, Roger Rabbit. There's a lot of bits and pieces. Give me something, brother. Well, this could be a really idiotic practice here, but some people will look at this and go, that's not a good way to honor him. I don't care what you think. But this is me wanting to just see. Dave, I'm going to go for about 10 more seconds, and if you're there, let us know. I love you, brother, and I miss you. Okay, here we go. Bye for now. Okay, not a whole lot going on there. A lot of gibberish, a lot of picking up radio signals and things like that. But this is what this thing does. This is what we picked up Dave's voice on. And you heard it was loud and clear at the time. And so here, I'm trying to close this out. There we go, close. So there you go. Well, it was just a little experiment. It does take a lot of energy for words, you're right, field guy. And if he wants to be known, says Chuck, I kind of think he's the kind of guy that ain't subtle. Yeah, you'll know. Exactly. And that's why Rainey and I heard it last October, because he wasn't subtle at all. And I know we've done this a million times on the show, but I'll play it for you right now, one more time. You listen. It's right after I say, I love you. I love you, Dave. That he says, I miss you too. And there's some loud thing goes, "Ah!" right across it while he's speaking. And you'll hear it. And then Rainey said, I miss you too. And I said, did you hear that? And I look up and I said, I miss you too, Dave. Or I asked, do you hear that? And he says it again. So, and I heard his voice. So listen to this one more time. You've heard it a million times, but here it is.
Dave, I love you, brother.
I miss you too.
I miss you too, I heard.
Yep,
Did you guys hear that?
I heard that.
I miss you, Dave.
One more time.
Dave, I love you, brother.
I miss you too.
I miss you too, I heard.
Yep,
Did you guys hear that?
I heard that.
I miss you, Dave.
So there you go. So you can believe what you want about that. I was there. I heard it. That makes it anecdotal, sorry to say, but I believe that was him. And there's evidence. I can't prove it was him, but it's evidence to me. So is that my truth? I just believe it was him, and I don't believe he can explain it away. So there you go. So Dave, here's to you. One more. Tipping one back. Even though it's not rum or pure alcohol, it's just a nice drink. It's a Coke with a lot of whiskey in it. I can taste it pretty well. So there you go. All right, guys. It is now, we've got 17 minutes left to this show. If you want to call in and talk a little bit, we got the time. Let's do it. Anybody out there want to call in and talk? On a Wednesday evening, middle of the evening. Cheers, Chuck. Roger Rabbit says that I miss you too cut across at least 3-4 channel scans. You're right. That's enough proof for me. So, and I'm not sure if he said I miss you too the second time. It was something like that. It could have been I love you too, or there's something else in there that I couldn't make out. Let me play it one more time. Listen to this one more time, and see the second time. It's right after you'll hear the second time. See if you can make out what he said. I'm going to have to bring this in and slow it down so I can see if I can hear it. But here you go.
Dave, I love you, brother.
I miss you too.
I miss you too, I heard.
Yep,
Did you guys hear that?
Okay, did you hear that? He said something right after I said, did you hear that? And it says, I something you too. Like additionally kind of thing. So I don't know. Listen one more time.
Dave, I love you, brother.
I miss you too.
I miss you too, I heard.
Yep,
Did you guys hear that?
Okay, you heard that. I something you too. I don't think he said miss you twice. There was something else in there. So I don't know for sure. But yeah, you're right, Roger. It's very distinct. So UFOs, anybody here seen one? No. Let me take that back. A lot of us have seen UFOs. My wife's seen a UFO. We see things, but UFOs, lights in the sky. Not the big production UFOs that some people have seen. How many of you do you think have experienced aliens? Has anybody in this audience been abducted or claimed to be abducted? Yeah, it does sound like that too, doesn't it, Chuck? Like I hear you. So I'll have to bring that in. I've never, in all this time, it's been since October that I recorded that. In all the months since October, I've never called it into a sound program and tried to analyze that a little. I should do that. So, what do you guys think? Anybody? Anybody abducted? Anybody believe you've seen aliens? I know Rainey has. Now, is she believing that she sees aliens? Is it subjective? Is it her truth? I don't know. Don't know for sure. All I know is I believe my wife. I believe she's heard things. So, how about you? I'm looking at something. I'm going to see if I can call this up. See what happens if I call this into a sound program. Hold on.
Dave, I love you, brother.
Okay. I'm going to show you my screen, folks, and show you what I do. I don't know if you would be able to hear this very well. I've got my sound up, but it's not running through the microphone. So I'm going to share my screen. Let's see. Present, share screen. We'll go entire screen. And boom, and share. There you're going to see that old tunnel effect. Let's go over here. Now, here is the sound. If you can see my mouse, because if you're seeing my screen, you see my mouse circling around in there. From here to here is the I miss you too. So let's listen.
Dave, I love you, brother.
I miss you.
Okay. So if I were to take this sound right here and isolate it out, now could you guys hear that? Because it's catching it off the speakers and into my microphone. There's a better way to do this once it's done, but if I go to my effects and I change the pitch and the speed, let's slow it down a little bit. Let's see what that sounds like.
Dave, I love you, brother.
Oh, no, that didn't work. It picked it up, and now this is what I do when I'm trying to play with sound and try to find out what was actually said. So if I by changing the pitch, I can show the speed. Let's bring it up to let's double the length of the speed. And let's see what it does. Oh no, that shortened it. Pretty sure.
Dave, I love you, brother.
Yeah, it speeded it up. I hope this is interesting enough that you stick around for a few minutes while I'm trying this. Let's go back to the effects. Let's change the pitch and speed. Let's bring the pitch down. The speed is 57% of the speed. Let's take the pitch down just a little bit. Okay, that's lengthening it a bit. Let's see what we can do here.
I miss. I miss you too.
No, that's not. I would have to goof around with this for a long time. So let's just see if we can find the other part of it.
I miss you too, I heard.
Yep.
Right here. Here's the other part of the clip. Let's see.
Did you guys hear that?
I heard.
Did you guys hear that? Did you guys hear? Did you guys hear?
Let's just take and amplify that just a little bit. See what we get. I'd have to mess around with the pitch and the speed to bring that up. Let's amplify by 400%. Let's see what we get.
Did you guys hear that?
I heard that.
Did you guys hear that? Did you guys hear that? Did you guys hear that?
What is he saying? What is that voice saying? What's it saying he does too? Yeah, Chuck, you can spend hours. So that second little clip, what do you think he's saying? I'll do that one more time.
Did you guys hear? Did you guys hear that?
I heard.
Did you guys hear that?
I heard that.
All right, let's go back to the first clip. That's right here. See, that sounds like Dave. Listen to that again. Okay, I'm going to amplify that. Amplify. See what we get. Listen now.
I miss you too.
I miss.
I miss. I miss. I miss you too.
I miss you too, I heard.
Yep. I miss you. I miss you
Now,
too.
is it expectation of hearing Dave's voice that sounds like him? To me, this sounds like him. Let me do that again.
I miss you too.
I miss.
I miss you
I
too.
miss.
See, to me, that sounds like Dave. So there we go. Let's let me undo our sharing of screen here. Stop screen. There we go. So what do you think? Sounds totally different, says Sean Strike. What's it sound like to you? Clearer? Does it sound more muddy? Does it not sound like Dave? To me, I've known Dave for over 30 years. It sounded like Dave to me. Yeah, Roger Rabbit says, the more I hear that, I can hear Dave's inflections in that voice. And I'll put these on a file so I can bring them in to the show and load it up. Or miss you clearly. You're saying it says, or miss you clearly, or I miss you clearly, or miss you is clearly what we can hear, that part of it. So, yeah, there it is. And people say, well, that's just such coincidence. I say, well, for being so coincidental, it certainly is on cue, isn't it? So that's interesting stuff to me. So this is the whole thing still, even with alien abduction, aliens existing, our government covering them up. This is all the same kind of thing. It's like, is there enough evidence to constitute proof? I would think, especially in the ghost arena, there is so much over the last 15 years, so much accumulated evidence that we can only conclude that there's something there. Something's going on. Chuck says, yeah, there's the audio version of Pareidolia, but that's the fun of it. Yeah. And I agree. I don't think this is Pareidolia. I think it's pretty clear. There's some words we can't make out, but The speed sounded more like Dave on the original. Yes, it did. I agree, Sean. Miss you, clearly. Oh, that's what... the first one or the second one, JP? You think he's saying clearly? Let me go back to that. It's right here.
Did you guys hear? Did you guys hear that? Did you guys hear that?
I heard that.
Did you guys hear that? Did you guys? Did you guys? Did you guys? Did you guys hear?
So what are we hearing there? And then the first one.
I miss.
There you go. So there it is. I'll leave it at that with that for tonight. Scientific proof needs repeatability. Yeah, the scientific method. Can you repeat it? Kind of hard when it comes to ghosts. Yeah, because you can't always get a ghost to say things. And we just demonstrated that. Of course, sometimes it takes time. But just doing this little thing on my phone a few minutes ago, that's not scientific, but we're looking for repeatable data. But when you're dealing with living things, which I don't think Uncle Dave is dead at all. I don't think ghosts are dead. They pass from this life. That's death, passing from this life. They're still alive. It's a living thing. Can you bring a ghost into a lab and have it have repeatable? I think the repeatable data is the fact that we do this kind of thing and over and over again, we get responses. May not be the same entity, it may not be the same thing, but we get those responses and it's repeatable data. So the amplified second clip says, I'm here, and it doesn't skip channels. It's a statement. That's the second one you said? Let's see. Let's listen to that again. Here's the second.
Did you guys hear that?
I heard that.
Did you guys? Did you guys? Did you?
Oh, was he saying? Remember, when I recorded this, we were at the Renaissance Festival site, and it was late at night, and there was nobody there. It was closed for the season. It was after we had the audience from the Phantom's Feast, where Rainey and I go and do the ghost hunting, and we were up on a place called the Knoll. It's a hilltop above the main gate and all of that. And we go up behind one of the stages, up these boards that decades ago were put into the ground there. And you could walk up underneath the big oak trees and stuff to the top of the knoll on a big flat, like a little plateau up there. And that's when I was talking to Dave. That's where we were in that little video. Now, this almost sounded like he says, I'm here, or here, listen again.
Did you get? Did you?
He's saying, I did something here, is what that sounds like. Again, I would like to stretch that out and slow it down and see if it makes any more sense. It almost sounds like he says, I lived here, or I did something here. That's what I'm hearing in this.
Did you guys hear that? Did you? Did you guys? Did you?
That's interesting. I don't know. I've got to listen to that a little deeper and said, I need to clear you. I think, Roger Rabbit, maybe part of the problem we're having is you're not hearing it as clearly as I can hear it because I'm not running it through my sound system. And maybe he was reminding you to clear yourselves. It's possible. I will clear this piece up and we'll play it again next time and just see. I'll take some time over the next 2 days and see if I can clean that up a little bit and see if we can hear that a little better. So I still hear Rainey too. Says, yeah, she's there. So here, let's play the two clips all together right here.
Dave, I love you, brother.
I miss you too.
I miss you too, I heard.
Yep.
Did you guys hear that?
There you go. So we'll see. You boosted it and you have headphones. Cool. All right, Chuck. Yeah, I can't quite make out that middle word. One more time, guys. Bear with me. I think this is worth doing.
Dave, I love you, brother.
I miss you too.
I miss you too, I heard.
Yep.
Did you guys hear?
So there you go. So we'll see. I miss you too, then Rainy too. You think he said Rainy? That's what you think he's saying? I still hear Rainy too. Oh, you think that that's what he was saying? Let's see.
Did you guys hear that? Did you guys hear that? Did you guys hear? Did you guys hear?
All right. And that's what you got to do. You got to sit down and play it over and over again and modify it a little bit and do this and amplify it and stretch it out and try to find ways to see if you can figure out what the word is that's being said. So it's interesting, isn't it? And proving that that was Dave is impossible. Saying I have evidence of something that sounds like Dave is very clear to do. I am here, is what Chuck said. It sounds like there's a different kind of word in there. It's almost like I'm listening to, but it's not clear like that. So I can't tell what he's saying. So we'll figure it out. We'll see if we can figure it out. That's like the foreign languages that we picked up with John Ward and Rocky Stucci and I when we went to that house in Minneapolis, the French Canadian house, and you heard the French guy going "Mandu," you know. But the other guy, we can't figure out what he said. There's two of them talking to each other, so it is very interesting stuff. Well, folks, we're going to wrap it up now. Thanks for being here. I don't know if we'll talk about aliens and UFOs again, unless I have the possibility of a guest coming on Friday to talk about some of these things. We'll see if that happens or not. The feelers are out, and we have to see if we can get something like that going. All of the hits on EVP. You'll have to hear this. I'll send you the clip to that, Chuck, and you can listen to it. So for now, you know what? Damn it. Let's just see. Here it is. I'm going to play this for you, Chuck. And everybody. This is John Ward and I. And at the end, there's two guys talking. Remember, we were in a room in this house where there's no furniture. They've been working on painting the house on the interior, wood floors. So you're picking up echoes. Rocky had a big directional microphone, the kind of cross out. I don't even know what they are. Big heavy duty mic setup on a tripod in the middle of what was the living room. John and I were off to the side, and we're talking at the beginning. We're kind of doing guy talk. You've heard this before if you've been to the show any length of time. And John and I are joking around about, well, this used to be a brothel. And John said, yeah, this is the area where she's riding him, is what he says. And then he kind of chuckles, and I kind of chuckle. Oh, she's riding him, and so on and so forth. And as we're saying that, right near the very beginning, you can hear somebody shushing us. Shh, shh, shh. And then toward the end, you have these two voices. Sounds like us, but it's not us. But you do hear their voices echoing off the room, the floors and the walls, the empty room, just like our voices. Listen to this. Here we go.
So, if you see the computer right
There you go. Here's the piece where there's the two voices. Listen. Now, neither of those voices were us. Even though the Mandu sounds like me, it's not me. I didn't speak a word of French that night. Listen again. Now we don't know what the first guy's saying. It sounds like he's saying, "I'm happier Iceland, Mandu." Is the second voice. I'm happier Iceland. What the hell is he saying? One more time. I don't know what he's saying. At the beginning, we have the shushing. Listen.
So, if you see Q right there,
You hear that? Right there.
you see Q right there, you see Q right there, you see Q right there, you see Q right there.
All right. So we were being shushed. Somebody was listening to us. So what do you make of those? So it's neat stuff. It's interesting. It's not English. Chuck, we've had a couple of people listen to that. Thought they might know what it was. Kind of this, like you get pig Latin down in the Caribbean. They were thinking it was kind of like they didn't call it this, but like a pig French of some kind. A mix of Indian and French that was vernacular in the day. But whatever it is, these two are talking to each other. The first guy says something, the other guy goes, Mandu. It's very French. And what we knew about the house after the fact, built by French Canadians in the 1850s. So who was that? It's interesting. So there you go, folks. Now I'm going to keep my word. We're going to get out of here. Averasu Hugh. I don't know what that means. Averasu Hugh. Okay, let me play that again. Tell me. Now you can tell they're two different voices. And you can hear them, once again, you can hear they're echoing off the room. Listen. Just like John and I were. There you go. There you go. And then there was the one, might as well, since we're right here, I might as well play for you the Big Bang, and then what we heard upstairs. You ready for this? We're all sitting in the basement. Rocky has the spirit box going. I'm sitting on the stairway going up to the kitchen. John is standing in front of me, leaning on the freezer or something that's down there. Rocky's sitting on the floor, leaning against the wall, holding up the spirit box. And you hear the gibberish of the spirit box. And then you hear this big bang. You've heard this before, if you've been with the show any length of time. And it came from upstairs. We ran upstairs, we're looking for something, and then we hear stuff. Listen to this. Running upstairs.
Yeah, this parking house. Wait. What tipped over? Hello, thank you for the sound. What was that? Hello, is anyone here?
Now, right here is where it picks up this strange huffing. We did not hear this with our ears. And then somebody says, welcome at the end. Sounds like Rocky, but it's not Rocky. Listen to this.
Welcome. Hey, thank you.
None of us. Again, the huffing. What is that? Listen.
Hello, is anyone here? Welcome. Hey, thank you.
So what is that? Who is that? What is this bang that we hear through the house? Here it is again.
Hello.
What the hell was that? Now, I've told this story before, but it was Barry Fitzgerald, if you remember him, Irishman from Ghost Hunters International fame, that he thought it was like a spiritual sonic boom. Now, he was there a few days later. He was at my house for the Paradigm Symposium, and we played this for him. He said, that's the only thing I can think it is. He says, like all this spirit energy builds up and boom. So there it is. So you need to have Rocky on one night. Rocky and I, he's been saying a million times, I've got to come on with him and he's got to come on with me. And we'll get it to happen one of these days. Maybe I can get him Friday if I can't get the other guy. So, yeah, it's breathing. And you notice it gets louder. And by the way, it was recorded in stereo. It goes from the right to the left. Welcome. Just like that. You can't tell that on this recording, but it's in stereo. You hear it go from the right speaker to the left speaker. It's 11:11, folks. We got to get out of here. So we'll look into this some more. Maybe we'll talk about this some more on Friday. Rainey and I have got to get some new material. We've got the singing woman at the hotel from my 60th birthday. So it's a little over 3 years ago now. And she's singing a song. We just can't make out the words. And so, and it's not carried, people go, oh, that's probably just a car stereo outside. Well, it was like 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. There was nobody sitting outside our window. COVID, all the shops and stores and restaurants and bars were shut down. This hotel was open. There was one other person in the hotel. There was no music playing. There was nothing. We went out in the halls. But earlier in the evening, we'd been doing some ghost hunting. And a woman asked Rainey to have me sing a song. In her mind, she heard this. So I did. And then when we asked her, will you sing for us? So close to 3 in the morning, we're woken up with the singing. We'll play that again on Friday too. Let's see what we have going on Friday. So all of you guys have a good night. Thank you for being here. We'll be back on Friday at 9 p.m. and we'll carry on as we have here tonight. So for now, live long and prosper.